Learn how to shatter areas of your photo into polygonal pieces. Hello everyone, my name is Marko Kožokar, I am an elite Envato author, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to create a shatter photo effect in Photoshop. Don't forget that you can follow along the written version of this tutorial on Envato Tuts+. If you would like to get even more advanced version of this effect and only using a few clicks, let me show you Envato Elements. Here you can get unlimited downloads of design assets, templates, fonts and so much more. And you can cancel your subscription anytime. For creating the shatter photo effect with ease, just look for the Shatter Poly Photoshop action. With this action, you simply brush over your subject areas that you want to shatter and click play. The action will do all the work for you, leaving you a fully layered results that you can further customize. There are 20 color looks that you can choose from, and the action is made so that every time you run the action, you will get unique result. Even if you use the same brushed area, you can create an unlimited number of results. Now before we get started, I just wanted to remind you to subscribe to Envato Tuts+ for more videos like this. After you start the Photoshop, go to File, Open, select your photo, and choose Open. Now before we get started, there are a few things that we need to check. First, go to Image, Mode, and make sure that your photo is in the RGB color mode 8-bit channel. And you can check the image size from here. For best results, your image size should be somewhere between 20 and 40 100 pixels wide or high. So I'll just drop down the image size. Also make sure that your photo is the background layer, so it should be called background and have this little lock icon. If you have something like this or anything else, just go to Layer, New, Background from Layer. Now we need to create the shatter brush that we're going to use for creating the effect. Go to File, New, name it Shatter Brush, set the width and height to 2000 pixels, and set the resolution to 72 pixels per inch. Now go to Layer, New, Layer, and name it Shatter Part 1. Choose the Pen tool, make sure that the tool mode is set to Path, and draw one shatter part. You can create any shape that you like. Feel free to experiment here. Here is the shape that I'll be using for creating the first part. Now right-click anywhere inside the canvas and choose Make Selection. Here choose OK. Now press D on your keyboard to reset the swatches. Go to Edit, Fill, set the contents to foreground color, use other settings as default, and choose OK. Then press Ctrl D to deselect the selection. Now right-click on this layer and choose Blending Options. Select and check the Inner Shadow effect, and use these settings. Change the fill of this layer to 90%. Now you can repeat this method to create as many shatter parts as you like. And I want to give you a few tips. Draw the parts in different shapes and sizes. To quickly create more parts, select the part layer and press Ctrl J on your keyboard to duplicate it. You can then choose the Move tool and reposition this new part. To transform any of the parts, press Ctrl T, and then you can scale and rotate the parts as you like. You can also add blur to any of the parts by going to the Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and here choosing the radius that you want. Feel free to use different inner shadow effect and fill settings. After you create all the parts, and you can create as many parts as you like, press Ctrl Shift and E on your keyboard to merge all layers. And here is my result. Now go to Edit, Define Brush Preset to define these shatter parts as a brush, and name it Temp. Press B on your keyboard to choose the brush tool, right-click anywhere inside the canvas, and select the temp brush that we have just defined. Then go to Window and choose Brush Settings. Here, enter these settings. Now to define this brush with new settings as a new brush, click on this little icon here, check this option, and name it Shatter. You can now close this panel and window, so we are back at the original file. Now when we have our brush ready, we can create the shatter effect. Go to Layer, New, Layer, and name it Shatter Part Small. Now set the foreground color to black, choose the brush tool, select the Shatter brush, and set the size to about 250 pixels. Then, simply brush where you want to create the small shatter parts. Here is my result. You can now repeat this method to create shatter parts in other sizes like medium, large, and even very large. And here is my result. Now shift-click on the Shatter Part Small layer to select all layers between, and go to Layer, New, Group from Layers, and name it Shatter Parts. Go to Layer, Layer Mask, Reveal All to add a layer mask that reveals the whole layer. Then set the foreground color to black, choose the brush tool, pick a soft brush, and brush over the parts that you want to remove. Now we are going to adjust the color and tone of the shatter parts. Go to Layer, New, Layer, name it Temp, and hide the shatter parts folder. Now we need to fill in the subject with a color on this layer. You can do this in different ways. You can brush with a color over subject, or make a selection of the subject and fill it with a color. Use any method that works best for you. Here is my result. You can now turn the shatter parts folder back on. Now Control-click on this layer thumbnail to make a selection, hide it, select the background layer, and press Ctrl-J on your keyboard to make a new layer using this selection. Then drag this layer just below the temp layer. Go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and set the radius to 50 pixels. Now press Ctrl-J on your keyboard 9 times to create 9 copies of this layer. Then, shift-click on the first layer to select all copies between and press Ctrl-E to merge them into one layer. Go to Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, and set the radius to 50 pixels again. Now we are going to repeat the same process a few times. This time set the radius to 25 pixels. Now drag this layer above the small shatter parts layer. Press Ctrl Alt and G on your keyboard to create a clipping mask and name it Shatter Parts Small Color. Press Ctrl J to duplicate this layer, drag this new layer just above the medium shatter parts layer, and press Ctrl Alt G to create a clipping mask. Name this layer Shatter Parts Medium Color. Repeat the same for remaining parts. Now press D to reset the swatches, go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Gradient Map, and name it Shatter Parts Contrast. Then, change the blending mode of this layer to Soft Light, set the opacity to 55%, and change the blending mode of the Shatter Parts folder to Normal. Now we are going to make the final adjustments to the effect. Go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Curves, and name it Color Look. Then, in the Properties panel, enter these settings. Press D on your keyboard to reset the swatches, X to exchange them, and go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Gradient Map, and name it Overall Contrast. Change the blending mode of this layer to Soft Light, and set the opacity to 10%. Now go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Vibrance, and name it Overall Vibrance and Saturation. In the Properties panel, set the Vibrance to 27 and Saturation to 22. Go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer, Levels, and name it Overall Brightness. In the Properties panel, set the Midtone input level to 1.20. Now press Ctrl, Alt, Shift, and D keys on your keyboard to make a screenshot, and Ctrl, Shift, U to desaturate it. Then, go to Filter, Other, High Pass, and set the radius to 2 pixels. Change the blending mode of this layer to Hard Light, and name it Overall Sharpening. Here is our final result. I hope you understood everything. If you like this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm Marko and thank you for watching.